I'm Michaela Watkins, and you're listening to You Might Know Her From with Damien and Ann.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of You Might Know Her From
with Damien and Ann.
Hello, and welcome to this week's show. I am Damien.
I'm Ann. If you're not familiar with the show, it's where Damien and I shoot the shit about all the things that are happening in our life, pop culture comings and goings, and we interview an actress each episode. Damien, did you have something to tell me?
Yes, so I have been falling down this rabbit hole in the series I'm watching. It's called Frankie Drake Mysteries. It is a masterpiece theater mystery show, and it's about an all-women run detective agency that takes place in 1920s Toronto, and I'm very into it.
So wait, it's a Canadian series.
I think it's like CBC via PBS or whatever. It airs on PBS in the States, I believe. It's part of Masterpiece Theater, and I don't know, it has a few seasons. But what I think is interesting about it is that, obviously these types of shows exist on PBS, but it's that format is so specific to, I think, it calls back to an olden times. However, at least in the States, we still have these terrible shows, but now they're procedural. So instead of it being a detective series, it's they're forensic scientists in every episode. They're opening up a cadaver to figure out a serial killer. And it's people are Numbers is on. I don't know, is Numbers about forensic scientists? I just feel there's, when I think about it, it's Without a Trace, Cold Case,
to me,
CSI,
it all reminds
NCIS.
me of in Minority Report where there was that screen where they pull it over and there's all of those numbers on an invisible screen. To me, that's what all of these shows are. There's a lot of high-tech nonsense that doesn't mean anything. And I was thinking back to I remember what I thought high-tech nonsense was, and it was The Net, the movie The Net. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Everything's on a flash drive.
Didn't they make a TV show of The Net? It was the Sandra Bullock movie was obviously The Net.
I think that's right.
And then they made a TV show starring Daphne Zuniga.
Oh my God, that's not. That sounds right. Also, it was probably on USA.
It literally was on USA.
Yeah,
I swear.
So I feel that sort of digital work is all I can see when I think about Criminal Minds or all of those things. There's always some tech junkie who's the one that crunches all the numbers and is a little weird socially. Anyway, the format is not necessarily for me,
but I do sort of understand the calming.
I like mysteries.
Yes, I like the idea that you can tune in once a week, and it's familiar characters, but you're tuning in for the case. You're not tuning in for, I guess, a serialized drama. But some of these, they try to serialize things, but it's also it doesn't really matter if you watch every episode or watch one every fourth.
I will say the only mystery show I ever actually watched was the X-Files from beginning to end ravenously.
Well, that is for sure the same exact thing. It's just different because it's extraterrestrials and supernatural, which doesn't really hold up with your interest as an adult.
It doesn't, but Gillian Anderson in Suits does hold up with my interest as an adult. So it makes sense that was how I got into the X-Files, was this very attractive, no-nonsense redhead who's very good at her job, which includes acting circles around David Duchovny. Anyway, Gillian Anderson is very important to me, and the X-Files is very good.
Speaking of David Duchovny, I just watched the Craft reboot or second film or whatever. It's called The Craft Legacy, and David
the new
Craft,
yes.
and David Duchovny is the patriarch, the dad figure in the film. I don't want to give away anything here, but
he's for sure evil. He's for sure
I'm going to say
the
first hour. If anyone has watched, we are obsessed with The Craft on this podcast. We watch it seasonally every Halloween time. Anne and I and our collective group of friends watch it, and the first hour of the new film, I was oh, I heard this was awful. I'm so on board. And then the second hour, I was well, they just tried to cram a lot of stuff in to wrap it up. But I was into the first hour, and the adults are David Duchovny and Michelle Monaghan, who I think I'm into because
I like her. I think she's excellent.
I was she had a moment where she was the it girl, and then sort of then it wasn't the moment anymore. But I like her because I feel she's a good actor and is a utility player.
Completely. I also love how her nose looks. I just think it's a unique nose, and I think it's a wonderful nose. And I'd love to have her on the show.
I feel she has a Who nose, a little button. Is that not correct?
There's something special about it. If you look at it, you'll understand.
Is it turned up a little bit?
I don't think it's turned up. Not like a Julie Andrews turned up nose. In my head, it's a little bit more like a flat top, and I like it.
Michelle Monahan, if you're listening, Anne is into the nose.
Can I just tell you something traumatizing that happened to me this week?
Please.
Look, you know how I feel about birds.
What a way to start a story.
I've had like a lot of animosity towards birds since I was a child. I'm terrified of them. I think they can see right through you. I think they know what they're doing. You know, I've come, I guess, maybe to respect pigeons at this point in New York. Like, they're fucking disgusting, but like I kind of like how gross they are maybe at this point. Anyway, during the pandemic, something turned for me where all of a sudden I was like, you know, losing my fucking mind in my apartment and like trying to take as many walks a day as possible. And I was like, oh, am I like interested in looking at the birds that are in the trees in Fort Tryon Park? Maybe I am. And maybe bird watching is, and then like everybody in my feed was like bird watching, and I was like, what is happening? That something has like switched in my brain. This can't mean anything good. So I leaned into bird watching for a little bit. Yesterday, I'm at home with my family right now, and I was walking into the basement. I had just picked up some Taco Bell with my family, and we were walking into the basement, and I went to open the basement door, and something hit my head as I was about to walk into the door, and I fell to the ground. I fell on my ass and then onto my back because I knew halfway down that it was a bird. A bird had flown into my head, and I had like a real nervous breakdown about it. Like, I could hear it because it had like fluttered its wings into my ear and head, like as I was trying to open this door, and I screamed. And my partner, Hannah, just like put her hand down to help me up, and she was like, I think it was leaves. And I was like, it is a bird. It was a motherfucking bird that flew into my head. And she was like, I think it was leaves. I saw it. It was leaves. I was like, Hannah, bird wings fluttered on my earlobes. I puked in my mouth on the way down, and then I hit the ground. My parents were like, what happened? I was like, it was a bird. And my dad was like, oh yeah, there's one that tries to roost up there under the deck. And I was like, of course it was a fucking bird. Anyway, it was like that moment of, I felt like I was being gaslit, and Hannah was like, it's not a bird. And I was like, it's a fucking bird. And I was so, I mean, when I tell you that
this was in the basement.
It was no, it wasn't in the basement. It was like going into the basement door, and the deck is above us. So a bird had found its way into the little like base of a baseboard and like tried to, you know, nest there. And when you open the door, it disturbs the deck, and the bird flies out and hit me in the. Anyway, it was a real, like, when I say that I had a moment that was not. I was not proud of how angry I was about potentially being gaslit about it not being a bird. Anyway, Hannah did say it was a bird and all was well, but I did scrub my ear within an inch of its life because it touched my fucking head.
So I'm so sorry to hear that this happened. I do want to ask and confirm. So the similar thing happened in my home. I was not there, but happened to my sister and my mom and my niece. My niece was in the house, and did I tell you this already? I don't need to say it on the air.
No, please say it on the air.
I think I need to remember it. So, okay, so something similar happened in my family. I wasn't there, but my sister was like on an important work call, and maybe was outside on the phone, or I don't know. And my niece was like inside with all of the dogs, because they have several dogs, and like opened the door to like get my sister and was like, hey, I think there's a bird in the house. And my sister was like, my niece loves playing pranks. So my sister thought it was a prank and was like really ignoring it. And my sister was like, my niece was like, there's really a bird in the house. So my sister like came in, and there was something like flying around in their house. And then my like mom came over, because she lives next door, with like a broom to get like, and then it was like, it's a bat. There was a bat in the house. And so then they had to like get the bat out of the house. Like, they needed to it had like flown up from their basement. Or maybe from the attic. I don't know. They had to like have a person come in and like check for bats, but they like had to like trace it, and it's like blind, so like didn't know where it was going. It was like flapping. And so I was thinking maybe it was a bat because of the way their wings could look.
Stop.
Like
Why would you even suggest that? Why would you suggest that? Why are you putting things into the ether that I don't want to deal with? I've made peace with the fact that it was a bird.
Well,
my
I like
father,
that your dad
who lives in the house.
Your dad confidently
my dad co-signed.
Yes. Confidently.
My dad.
Oh yes, one ready to roost. I love. That's like, for listeners, if you don't know Anne's father, but I will tell you, like, what I whenever Anne tells me stories about her dad, I love like his confidence about something wild. He'll be like, oh yeah, that was
that 1,000% happened.
Oh, bless Ralph every day. Folks, We were so excited this week to land the great Michaela Watkins. I think what was really exciting for me, at least, with Michaela is that I knew her maybe best initially for Saturday Night Live. It was one of her first big TV credits. But like the great Rachel Harris, who we had on, earlier this season, she really has acting chops and a theater background. And so getting to dive into her work and getting to talk to her about her craft was really fun, because you think of people who orbit some of these same films and projects and come from these different comedy companies, and you think of them as being comedians, and then you're like, oh, you have gravitas, you have depth, and it's always just such a joy of the project.
We were so excited to have her here. Also, I watched a movie that she did with Ben Affleck, and her take on the Ben Affleck situation was so charming and wonderful. Get into it.
You might know her from Casual,
Transparent,
Saturday Night Live,
In a World,
Brittany Runs a Marathon,
Sort of Trust,
The Way Back,
and The Unicorn.
We are super thrilled to be here with actress, writer, comedian, producer, Michaela Watkins. Michaela, thank you for being on the show. This was also our second take, so thanks for going along with us.
Oh, yeah, no, thanks again still this time, even though we restarted. I'm still happy that you had me on your show.
Okay, so Michaela, in 2008, you got cast on Saturday Night Live at the age of 37. Mm-hmm. At the time, the oldest woman to ever be cast on the show, which we are obsessed with. It's an amazing thing to me.
You're obsessed with age.
Well, obsessed with you.
We're obsessed with women that aren't.
Yes, exactly. I remember there was a lot of energy around that season because, one, it was coming right off the writer's strike, and two, because it was an election year. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, you had a very strong first season. I mean, I was always interested in the new cast members and always the women cast members, but you were unceremoniously not brought back for the following season. Mm-hmm. Can I ask you what it was like to, I have to assume on some level, land a dream job in comedy and then to sort of see it go away so quickly?
I guess technically 36. It was a month before my 37th birthday. So as you can imagine, people don't get hired to Saturday Night Live at that age necessarily. I just really thought that ship had sailed, and it was a bummer to me because I really felt like I was just getting started, getting going in my career. So it's not so much that I'm a little bit of a late bloomer. I just thought I was going to live a life of theater. And so I was doing all these other things before I even moved to LA, before I even joined the Groundlings, which I didn't really do until I was almost 30. So it's I didn't really kick off a TV or film acting career until I was almost 30. So to have it sort of feel oh, you're too old at 36, almost 37, was a crappy feeling. So then you can imagine the feeling of getting Saturday Night Live at that point was just shocking. I just was so grateful. I mean, I'm sure everybody who gets that job is to their most degree grateful. I'm sure that they're just brought to their knees with gratitude. But I think that there was even more of an appreciation from someone like me, probably, who just was wow, I know enough to know that this doesn't happen.
On SNL, you impersonated a lot of people we love, like Hoda Kotb, Joan Rivers, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Ariana Huffington, and Barbara Walters. Besides Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who we know you've worked with a couple of times, did you ever meet any of those women, and did any of them have anything to say about your portrayal? Was that ever an interaction you had to deal with?
Yes, it's funny. I got to meet a couple of people. Ariana Huffington was interesting because she got in touch with me after I did an impression of her. And so that was my first week on SNL, essentially, that I did Ariana Huffington. So getting a letter and a call from her saying she wants to meet me, I just didn't respond because I thought, I can't meet this woman. I can't meet her. I mean, I want the freedom to do an impression of her. I can't meet her, So then when I didn't come back to SNL, when I got the notice that my contract had not been renewed, I went to her house and drank her wine and ate her food. And she gave me a stack of books that she wrote. I walked out of there holding 20 books that she wrote and a stack of all of her op-eds. She's, commendable. I think she's prolific as hell. She's done a million things, but I think in her mind, I think she's also very savvy. I think she was like, if you're going to do an impression of me, you better do it right. Like, get your facts right. So here's everything I'm about. Here's everything I've written. Here's everything I feel and think and know. And, you know, she's cool. Like, she was great. She does this little tricky thing that I like sort of figured out in the room, which was she has somebody bring us wine and then I drink. And she picks it up and she holds it for the whole time. And then she never takes a sip of it. And meanwhile, I've had a whole glass of wine. And then it's like time for me to leave. And as I'm leaving, somebody's coming over and her wine gets set back onto the tray. And as the person comes in, the next person comes in, they get offered a glass of wine. And she takes back her wine that she had with me that she didn't drink either. So basically, don't play poker with Ariana Huffington.
That is incredible.
She will take your money. She will pretend she's getting drunk and take your money. No. So she's interesting. I really like her. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for her.
So you've said on the record that Julia Louis-Dreyfus was the first person that you told you got SNL because you were doing The New Adventures of Old Christine at the time. Did she give you any good advice? And also, like, while you were there during the tumultuous time of your season, who was your go-to person that sort of was your confidant when you were there?
So she gave me some advice, you know. She was just like, had certain writers that I think she had a real affinity for and, you know, felt like I should definitely listen to them or try to work with them and things like that. You know, I think she had a conflicted time when she was there. It was like sort of a very different kind of an environment at that time. Definitely way more of a boys' club. And I think it's always a little bit of a boys' club, right? Especially, I don't know about now actually, because it's been, 12 years since I was on the show. But when I was there, I just think anytime you have a cast where there's like 2/3 men, 4 women and 12 men, I think there is an inequity just built in naturally. So
right. And usually there's like one woman who they give everything to for that time period. And that's how they sort of justify the inequity.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. It just, that was one of those things. Like if I was younger, I would have just been like, oh, okay, that's normal. But because I was older, I couldn't help but be like, this is stupid. But I would say my go-to confidant person, I think that the person who became my bestie while I was there was Jason Sudeikis. And I think it was just more because, I was hired with the really talented Abby Elliott. And she was 21 at the time. So she was like a little kid. And I was like this old lady.
Yeah.
So while we got along very well, we just didn't have a lot in common, But, we got along great. We shared an office. We shared a dressing room when I first got there. But she and Casey, I think, were more in sync because they were closer in age. I think they were just a couple of years apart and at the time. And everybody else was really partnered up. Like Kristen, who's, a good friend now, like she at the time was in every single sketch and everything like that. They were running her ragged. So I think I never really wanted to bother her or distract her. She was just so busy. She was just had to be in 20 places all the time. Plus she was doing like a lot of movies outside of work. So she was just a busy gal. So she was a little elusive when I was there, but everybody else like wanted to go home to their spouses and partners, at the end of the day. And so I think Jason, because he was like not married, at that time and I wasn't, that we just became buddies. We just drank scotch, played Settlers of Catan, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Michaela, correct me if I'm getting this story a little bit incorrect, but I think I had heard that you had said that like one of the ways that you sort of rebounded from this experience on SNL was that you actually wrote and ended up selling the series Benched to the USA Network.
Yeah.
Was that experience writing and pitching that cathartic?
It was cathartic in the way of like, wow, I can't believe this is like out of a storybook, right? I lose my job at SNL. I'm very sad. I write my first script and now it's like being made into a series. Sort of like just so strange, but it was a reminder, and I have to keep coming back to this reminder my whole life, that it didn't happen magically. I worked so hard with my writing partner, Damon Jones. Like we worked our asses off on that thing. We met every single day. We smoked like so many packs of cigarettes trying to get through that thing. We took it apart and rewrote it and took it apart. And we were only writing it to see if we could write it, if we could write a good spec. And the fact that like they were responding like that was so magical and exciting. And it felt like, wow, maybe I won't just be the gal who was fired from SNL, maybe there is a life for me beyond that. Because I was on unemployment. I mean, I didn't want to go back to waiting tables because that's too depressing. And I didn't have a job. I didn't have any other job. So
yeah.
What I did actually, it was super humbling, was I went back to Groundlings where, I'm a company member. I went back and started taking some song improv classes. Like I started taking classes again, just because I was like, I felt like I was kind of laid bare. You know what I mean? It was just like such a public sort of like exciting, get on the show, and then such a public sort of rejection of like, we don't want you in the show anymore. So I think it was just, I didn't have anything to lose. I think it was very important for my development of the rest of my life, because you can't really hurt me anymore. Like it can't, like that was just so raw that I just sort of like, all right, I might as well just really lean into it and just take classes, go buy my costumes at Goodwill again, go do the whole, go on unemployment, go for it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about one of your big landmark successes, which is, of course, the Hulu series Casual, where you starred as Valerie, a recent divorcee who's navigating modern dating while also balancing her family life with her teen daughter and her brother. We actually interviewed Rachel Harris on this show, and she told us that a show like Casual is actually her dream job.
Oh,
so
Rachel.
You've been for years the sort of utility comedy player in tons of projects, but what was it like to have sort of the weight of the series and getting to show off some of your dramatic chops suddenly on your shoulders?
And it was such a dream. It was like dream come true. Like it was the show that made me go, this is why everything had to happen the way everything has to happen. Because it was the show that I was ready for at that time. It was the show that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to work with Jason Reitman. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to be directed by him. He took such a chance on me. I don't think Hulu launching their first original I think they wanted a Maggie Gyllenhaal. I don't think they wanted me, And from my audition, he just started to fight for me. He just fought and fought and fought till he got me, till they relented, And then working with Tommy Dewey and Tara Lynn Barr and Nyasha Hatendi. The cast was amazing.
Frances Conroy showing up as your estranged mother.
Oh, God, I love Frances. So that show was just so great because it was one of those things like, oh, we're going to film me putting makeup on. We're going to film me like getting out of a shower, or, putting the keys in the ignition. Like usually all the utilitarian players I've done are just like coming in being like, I have news. I have something to move the story along.
Well, sort of in that same note, can you talk about, like, there's a lot of sex in the series. Like, was that an intimidating part of that gig to come into and, like, have to do sex scenes on camera?
Yeah. I've never done that before. And I can't say it's not like I always wanted to. I wasn't like, oh, good, I can finally do the sex scenes I was hoping to do. So it was cool. I think it's like, I learned so much. Both how I would direct sex scenes, how I wouldn't direct sex scenes sometimes. I met one of my most favorite people in the world on that show, which Lynn Shelton, who passed away last year.
Yeah.
And I haven't directed anything on TV yet, but I know that when I do, I'm going to call on her constantly because she's just wonderful. The way that she works with women in sex scenes is like no other director has really tapped into that kind of sensitivity and channeled such purpose and femininity and clear communication to the degree that you're so relaxed you will literally do anything, which isn't her goal. She's so brilliant that she's somebody who shot sex scenes of her own. Like, in other words, she acted in them so that she would know how to direct them. Because that's the kind of director she is.
I'm so glad you brought her up because we actually were going to ask you about her because, of course, you starred in the 2019 film of hers, Sort of Trust, and we were heartbroken like everybody else, when she passed away last year. So you're talking about sort of her sensitivity. Do you think it's her sensitivity to actors specifically, or does it go beyond that? Is she really an actor's director?
She's really an actor's director, but it does go beyond that. She's just in awe of the world. She was just in awe of everything. She was in awe of a root vegetable. She was in awe of the sun, the moon, the stars, love, sadness, grief, everything, aging, aesthetics, music. Oh, huge musicophile. Is that the word? And she's just a beautiful soul who was so alive that I still can't get my head around that she's dead, if that makes sense. Like I was just texting with Mark, and he was just like, it's just stupid. And it's stupid. That's the only way I could describe it. I don't understand where she is if she's not here because she's too alive to not be alive.
Obviously you come from this background of improv comedy at the Groundlings and sketch. So did any of that work that you do, did any of that skill set get to be brought to casual, or did you not get to take any of those liberties?
Here's the thing that's so crazy. For doing sketch comedy, which is, pretty broad and everything, we at the Groundlings learn how to do character like nobody's business. I mean, if you're going to excel at the Groundlings, it's because you can really, really deliver on creating character. There's nobody in the main company who doesn't have just unbelievable people that they disappear into. So I think my whatever acting training, which I was not always a good actor. I started out as a really bad actor. So that journey of like learning how to just act and then building character and all that kind of thing, those two things marrying each other, you have to be convincing, right? So I think it does tie into, like with casual, I didn't improvise lines so much. A little bit. Definitely, as I knew my character more and more, I would probably button or zhuzh things a little bit. But Jason was quite clear out of the gate. Jason Reitman, who directed the pilot, just said, this is not going to be like that. Like, you stick to the script. The script is really simple and, well, not so simple. It's pretty complex, but it's not wordy. And so there's a reason your character isn't so wordy. And so for me, it was such a cool thing because I got to really act sort of between the lines, because the lines, she wasn't saying what she felt. She was saying one thing and feeling another a lot because she was really repressed and depressed. So there was a whole world that was happening inside of me that I couldn't say. And that was really a challenge. And it was really cool challenge, I felt like.
So, Michaela, there's a lot of actors. We talked about the Groundling. There's a lot of actors that sort of hail from the Groundlings or the state or UCB that sort of routinely like orbit each other's pieces in these ensemble movies and things. Gillian Bell, David Wayne, Rob Corddry, Ken Marino, Jessica St. Clair. Is there like a sense of community when you are all on jobs together? Like, who of your comedy world is someone who could call you and you automatically say yes to a job?
All those people that you just named.
Really?
Literally. If they called me, I would say yes to anything. But Gillian Bell is my friend from Groundlings, and, she asked me to do Brittany Runs a Marathon, and I said yes. I hadn't even read it yet. So I said, I'll say yes just because the way you described this movie, I want to see you do that part more than anything. So if I'm available and can be there to cheer you on, I'm happy to. Yeah, no, at Rob Corddry, Lake Bell, Lake Bell plucked me sort of after I left SNL and said, I want you to star in my short film. And it went to Sundance, and then I played her sister in her first feature, In a World. And she was a children's hospital gal with Rob Corddry and, David. And so Corddry played my husband in a World, and now Corddry plays my husband on the show The Unicorn. And I took the show. Yes, I mean, I think Walton Goggins is a fantastic actor, but I didn't know him personally. But I knew, being married to Rob, going to work every day, I was going to have a good day. Like, it was going to be a fun day. Yeah. So I said, yeah, I'll do that show and see what it's like to just go to work and not be tortured. character like Valerie was.
So I'm so glad that you name dropped Lake Bell, because we've talked to a lot of women on the show, some who've worked with a lot of female directors, some who have worked with nearly none. But on this show, we're exclusively interested in the work of women. So we're delighted to be able to track sort of your work with female writer-directors. So in 2013, you worked with both Nicole Holofcener in Enough Said and Lake Bell in her directorial debut, In a World. We love both of these movies so much. So did it feel significant to you to have women at the helm? And did either film sort of mark a change for you in your career?
That's a great question. What a great question. I also worked with Joey Soloway, who previously used to go by Jill Soloway, is now Joey Soloway, and did Joey's movie, Afternoon Delight.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Yeah. So it was like that sort of trifecta year of directors. And when I went to Sundance, it was Lake's movie and Joey's movie that were both there. And it was the year that they had like 9 films by women and 4 directed by men, 4 male filmmakers. And it was such an like you just could feel the change, you know? And it was because of Joey. It was because of Lake Bell. It was because of Nicole Holofcener. It was because of Carrie Leiser, who brought me on to New Adventures of Old Christine. That these were the big sort of, it was such a step forward in my career, all these things. They cast me in ways that men never cast me. They let me do things and trusted me to do things that I'd never been allowed to really do before. And they wanted me to do them. You know, they trusted me to bring my own thing. And so it really stretched me as an actor. I really loved all the people. I made such great connections with all the people I worked with. I got such a lesson in learning how women can lead and do lead very well in many ways. Sorry, but you know, they're my favorite. It's been like, you know, Lynn Shelton, like these female directors have been some of my favorite people I work with. I would say I would add Jason and David Wayne into that mix too. But I think like these women launched me. They helped me launch, especially after SNL. It was like, you know, I had that downtime doing my own show. And I mean, I didn't act on it, but just writing it. And then here I was now acting again, but being led by women. Oh, I was doing Trophy Wife, which was written by 2 women. And it was just such a great time, you know, and it still is, you know, it's growing and growing and growing. But I felt like that was the first major shift into females at the helm. It was really great. And, you know, the world wasn't necessarily ready for it. At that Sundance, I like to tell this story because I like to shame this writer, this critic. It was for the Hollywood Reporter, and his name is, I don't want to get his name wrong because now I can't remember. Maybe last name is McCarthy. I can't remember. But he wrote a very sexist review about Afternoon Delight, really awful. And when I looked at his roundup at the end of Sundance, he said, of the movies I love the most, here are my favorite. And he named 3 movies that were made by 3 of the 4 male filmmakers out of 13, right? He named 3. Okay, fine. If those are the ones he resonated with, I don't care, whatever. He's allowed to have his opinion. This was the problem. The next line of the review said, of the female directors, here were my favorite.
It's so pathetic. It's gross.
It's the grossest. That would never happen now. But that's what happened in 2013, yeah.
Okay, so talking about the Soloways, you have a 6-episode arc on Transparent where you play 2 roles, actually. So both are in flashbacks. One is a wife whose husband is at a summer camp for self-proclaimed cross-dressers that Moira also attended. And the other is Moira's grandmother, Yetta, who lives in Weimar, Berlin during the pre-World War II scenes in seasons 2 and 3.
Right.
Can you tell us, as an actor, how did you, if at all, connect the dots between these 2 characters in this Transparent universe?
Well, you know, Joey really wanted to do something really interesting by I guess it was season 3 that I played Yetta, or 2 or 3.
I think it spans 2 and 3, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think by season 2, it was really clear to Joey that they wanted to talk about epigenetics, talk about the ancestral pain that we bring into the world, especially Jews, you know, having either survived or not survived the Holocaust, and really wanted to look at shame and really, really wanted to look at the fear of persecution, right? That we bring into the world, that somebody's out to get me, somebody's after me, you know? I really loved the character that I got to do the first season at the cross-dressing camp. That was like a flashback to the 90s. And I just felt like it was such a free character, you know? And then when I got played, you know, Moira's grandmother, I was now informed of Moira's in so much pain. And where does it come from? It's coming through my line. It's coming through my line. So it was like that freedom of that first character, who I don't think was a Jew, and then playing the grandmother that I think is just completely like closed up like a clamshell. So scared.
Yeah.
Just wants to protect and survive. And it's all at the expense of her own joy, her own pleasure, her own ability to love, you know, outwardly love in a beautiful way without any sense of her self, who is she? Just a traumatized woman. So I think that was the juxtaposition that I wanted to work with.
As you were saying, so much of Joey Soloway's work is sort of interested in Jewishness, Jewish themes, Jewish history, you know, the sort of shame and the guilt, obviously transparent, but also in Afternoon Delight, you played sort of this Jewish woman who was like the head of the JCC. And that was, you know, really fun to watch you do. But can you talk a little bit about what it's like to sort of work on a piece that's rooted in your culture? And is there any part of you that sort of minds when these pieces are sort of about Jewishness if you're working with actors that are not Jewish?
You know, it's so funny. Joey is a big reason why I even identify as Jewish. Yeah, because Joey started this thing called East Side Jews in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Where it was just like such a hipster Jew thing. It was like all these really cool artsy Jews would get together for holidays or Shabbat and reimagine and reinvent it in these new sort of, not the Judaism that you grew up with kind of ways, you know, in a cool, fun, like get a taco truck, go to the river, have like music, you know, people play music, storytelling events that are just kind of like down and dirty and fun and like aesthetically pleasing, you know, with like incandescent twinkle lights and blankets and smoking weed and looking at the stars and like just this kind of hipster hippie Jewish get together for people in their 20s and 30s. And it was cool. It was like super cool. But I didn't really, I mean, I was born Jewish, raised Jewish, and then fully abandoned ship. Never dated a Jew, anything. And Joey made Judaism relevant to me. Joey's interpretation of Hanukkah and light and truth and just getting rid of the shame of, you know, when I grew up, Jews were super outsiders. You know, I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to blend in. And Joey had this way of really taking the things that I sort of missed and liked about Judaism, but that wasn't available to me, or that wasn't how my family interpreted anything, the holidays or anything. Joey would do Shabbat every Friday, you know, like make a chicken, light the candles, eat a challah, basic things, right? But it was just hanging out at their house with, you know, 20 really interesting people. Somebody would play piano, somebody would hop on the drums, somebody would pass a joint. You know, it was just like, oh, rest. We just had a really heavy week and now we rest. And this is what we do. And they do this religiously every single week. How amazing is that? Yeah. So it was kind of repackaged to me in a way where I thought, oh, I forgot that I can make it right for me. It doesn't have to be your parents' Judaism necessarily. But still, I just remember Bradley Whitford said to me at the premiere of Transparent, said, I think America's ready for the trans stuff. I'm just not sure they can handle all the Jewish stuff. He's right. Like, people still hate Jews. They're just like Jews. Yes. They're still like marching around with torches saying Jews will not like replace us. 6 million, not enough dead. You know, I was under this false sense of, you know, that we were like we were in a post anti-Semitic society and world, but we're not. So anyway.
That's so interesting. I didn't know about Joey's sort of Jewish gatherings in LA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Joey made Judaism fun and cool and, like I said, relevant, thoughtful.
I love that.
Like people would cry and share stories, and it was really nice. I ended up marrying a Jew, I don't even think I would have dated a Jewish man. I'm saying it like so dismissively, a Jew. No, but I married the best man in the world who happens to be Jewish. And I do give a lot of that credit to Joey. Joey was amazing for me in a million ways. Still is. But at that time, I think I was really learning how to empower myself as a woman, as an artist, as a Jew. And they just never occurred to them to apologize or demur in any way or shape or form. And so they led by example for me. And I have just really great little wisdom that would get dropped at my feet by them. Like one time, I was in this relationship with this guy who was kind of a narcissist. And they said to me, look, your man is going to be the most interesting person you've ever met on an airplane, not the most interesting person everyone has ever met on an airplane.
That's such a cool distinction. You're like, oh, okay.
I know. Exactly.
Okay, Michaela, we have entered the part of the show. This is our rapid fire section. This theoretically means we are wrapping up.
Okay.
This is rapid for us because it's wild and all over the place, but you can take your time if you need to. Okay, so you went on the late Larry King show in 2018, and you seemed very genuinely tickled by him. Did you ever go to his bagel shop in LA? And if so, what did you get?
I never went to his bagel shop in LA, which is shanda, because I love bagels. I happen to love bagels. I actually, inspired by Joey Soloway, I invite them into my house every Sunday. I have bagels.
What's your bagel order?
Sesame. Love sesame bagels.
With what cream cheese?
Oh,
plain?
Just
scallion?
plain cream cheese. I like capers.
Okay.
I like a lox. I like a tomato. Okay. I'll take a piece of lettuce. I don't care. I don't need the lettuce. I'm not a raw onion gal, but I appreciate that people are. If I'm not seeing anybody, I'll eat one.
Yes. I like an everything bagel, but you have to commit to that with scallion cream cheese. It's going to be the taste in your mouth the rest of the day.
Yeah. I like all bagels, but sesame bagel is my go-to.
Okay, Michaela, you star as Ben Affleck's sister in the 2020 sports redemption movie The Way Back, and in your kitchen scene, he hits a beer across the room. Was this a Dustin Hoffman Kramer versus Kramer moment, or did he tell you that he was indeed going to hit the beer?
No, it was a surprise to everybody. I think he almost took out a cameraman. It was so wonderful. Like, I got goosebumps. I was just like, I was like, that's why you're a movie star. I loved it.
I'm glad he didn't take you out with it. I really was like, I bet he did not tell Michaela he was going to do that.
No, I don't think he knew he was going to do it. That's what I mean. I think it was, I was flattered. I was like, I pissed him off that much. Yay, me.
Oh, I love that you loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michaela, there's an incredible scene in the 2020 dark comedy Bad Therapy, now streaming on Hulu, where you suddenly slash a child's face with a permanent marker. It made me laugh so hard, and then you run off the bus. What is the worst thing to ever happen to you on public transportation?
Oh, I was coming out of a subway station when I was 14 years old, and I felt something on my elbow, and it was a man's penis.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I was walking
up the
stairs.
The steps?
I was coming up the steps, and I felt something like sort of soft and warm on my elbow.
I'm sorry, that's horrendous.
That's horrible. Horrible.
Okay, so Michaela, there's been so many pop culture stories that describe Lorne Michaels eating popcorn out of a bowl while taking meetings. Were you ever on the end of any sort of meeting like that? Did you ever see him eat popcorn?
I think I knew there was a popcorn machine outside of his office, and I know about the infamous popcorn meetings, but I have a unique thing with Lorne because I never met him before he hired me. I'm the only person I think that he didn't have like a one-on-one meeting with. I can't say I recommend it. I wonder if that was part of why he didn't feel any problems about letting me go. It's like, I don't know. Don't really know her. Never really sat with her. Never ate popcorn. It was like we were like after my audition, they said Lorne's going to come meet us for a drink. To meet you, and then at the last minute they're like, Lorne's not coming, and I'm like, okay. And then I got hired a month later, and never had the 4 a.m. meeting in his office.
Alrighty.
Yeah, weird, right?
So weird.
Yes.
I haven't stopped to really pause and think about that. It's weird, but it is kind of weird. Yeah. Anyway.
Michaela, you're in good company of one-seasoners from SNL. Some of that list includes Jenny Slate, Laurie Metcalf, Ben Stiller, Damon Wayans, Joan Cusack, Chris Elliott, Janine Garofalo, Robert Downey Jr., Sarah Silverman, Rob Riggle, and Denny Dillon. Which of those people would you be most likely to party hard with at the SNL 50 party?
Sarah Silverman all the way. And Jenny probably. But I love Sarah. Sarah was always, before I ever got SNL, was always... I can't believe she only did one season because she is etched in my memory. My family, we loved Sarah. Anytime she came on, we would just lose our minds.
She also seems like she's been a person who's very supportive of lots of people's care's as they're coming up. I feel like she pays it forward.
She's great. She's good for the world. Her politics are great. Her attitude is great. She's a solid, strong, amazing, incredible person. Love her.
Okay, Michaela, you played Janice, one of Laura Dern's nemesis in Enlightened, created by Mike White. Mm-hmm. Did you watch Mike White on Survivor?
No, because I don't really watch. I know. This is terrible. This is probably why I got fired from SNL. I don't really watch reality shows. I didn't know who the fuck anybody was. I had to, do impressions, and I would be like, can you do Hoda Kotb? And I was like, of course I can do Hoda Kotb. And then I run in my office, and I'm like, who the fuck is Hoda Kotb? What is the word Kotb? What is that? How do you spell it? Oh, Kotb. What?
Cot B, yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't. I never have. I watched Bachelor, I think, a couple. I did, some American Idols. Beyond that, I haven't watched any of these. The only reality show, here we go. I'm slowly, you're going to regret having me on here. I watched the British Throwdown. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's called the Throwdown?
Yeah. It's ceramic. It's a reality.
Oh, it's a glass.
Oh, I'm into that.
No. Ceramics. Ceramics.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. My friend Vanessa told me about this. If you're vouching for it too, Vanessa had told me to watch it. Okay, I'm watching it.
Oh my God, it's like Xanax. They're so nice to each other. They're so nice. They're like,
that's how I feel about the Great British Bake Off. It's comforting. Nobody wins anything except for a plate.
Yeah, they're like, well, that didn't go the way you thought it would, did it? Yeah, you certainly. Well, marks for trying. And it's like, yes.
Yeah, it's not cutthroat.
It's not cutthroat and mean. Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about Mike White, but that season of Survivor is very good if you're interested. We're rewatching it right now.
Maybe I should watch it. I love Mike. I mean, Mike's genius. He's the most brilliant man. No, but that bitch please character came out of the fact that I didn't know who anybody was at SNL. Because I was I had to do a crash course in pop culture, basically. And so I started reading all these, shitty blogs from these terrible assholes.
Oh, yeah, that was the era of Perez Hilton, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I just I thought I'd just do a character as one of those nasty people.
Okay, Michaela, we're going to close out with something that's very important to us. We are queer and we are lesbian pop culture enthusiasts. So you play a lesbian in Sort of Trust. You have a lesbian sex scene in Hung, and you voice the character of Cantor Dina Resnick, who has an affair with Jesse's mom on Big Mouth. Michaela Watkins, who are your top 3 favorite lesbians?
Oh, I was a lesbian with Wendy McLennan on Modern Family, too.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Okay.
Who are my top 3 lesbians, did you say?
Yeah, just for you, personally.
Tig Notaro, Hannah Gadsby, and then Joey's not really a lesbian. I wouldn't say Joey's a lesbian. So,
Joey's sister, though, is a lesbian, right? Faith Soloway is a lesbian?
Oh, Faith Soloway. Thank you. Yes, I'll go with Faith. I love Faith.
Okay.
3 favorite lesbians.
We're going to use that in our press reel.
On that note, Michaela Watkins, thank you so much for joining us on the show. This has been a total pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. This was a fun interview.
top 3 lesbians.
It's absolutely going at the top of every episode. I love it anytime anybody sings on this show because I'm like, yoink, soundbite. Yes, that was pleasing.
Yes, 100%. I think it is true that one of the things we had in common in our friendship and in our Venn diagram of interest was lesbian pop culture, especially like lesbian celebrity gossip from the 90s. But I don't know that if you had asked us 2+ years ago if we thought like we would be like really like that would be a lane that we were really interested in on the podcast. But here we are asking every actress who has played a lesbian who their favorite lesbians are. And
they're like, in real life, for me, most famous, I was like, yes, all of that.
I don't want to know fictional characters ever.
Look, if somebody comes on here talking to me about Pepper Ann being a lesbian, I'm open to it. You know?
Interesting.
Like,
do you think that Clarissa from Clarissa Explains It All was a lesbian?
No.
If it wasn't Melissa
She was just
Joan Hart?
90s.
Okay.
No, I think it's because she was so 90s, and now looking back at the aesthetic, it's like, oh, this is a certain thing that is now appropriated and like used in current day. But I don't know. No, I think Pepper Ann is gay.
What about the young woman who played the daughter in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead? Was she a lesbian?
Oh.
I think that tomboy, I think that the language of tomboy is like antiquated a little bit.
Yes.
But I do think that there is, like, remember the, what was that movie called? Little Giants, where like the girl joined the football team?
Becky Icebox.
Yes. Icebox. And I was like, is she lesbian canon?
Oh, you know what? My partner and her whole family would say yes because they were a Becky Icebox. I think Becky the Icebox. That's her name.
I think that's right.
They were obsessed with her bangs, and I think they would say yes. So on behalf of my in-laws, I'm going to say yes. That family is a yes. For some reason, Little Giants was not for me. But I did like a lot of movies like The Angels in the Outfield, Rookie of the Year, Mighty Ducks, etc. And I feel honestly like it was probably the self-loathing inside of me that didn't like Little Giants. Now that I'm thinking of it, because it was about a girl.
Yeah, I agree. I think you were probably self-hating because I was very into. I remember watching it so clear as day. And there's a part, I think Al Bundy, whatever his name is, Ed O'Neill is the father, and he at one point, or her uncle or something, and she's like, "Do you think I'm pretty?" And he's like, "No."
Oh, God.
I think you're beautiful. And I remember being like, oh, my God. And my sister was like, that was so obvious that that's what he was going to say. And I was like, no, it wasn't. Or I remember I was probably like, was it? Oh, I didn't know. Let me repress this memory and bring it up in 30 years on the podcast. I'm so glad we're on this tangent about young tomboys turned lesbian canon. But what a great interview we had with Michaela. She was a total pleasure. And again, I just like really love talking to like comic actors about like getting to show off your range, getting to spread your wings in the industry. And like, I also love talking to her about working with great women. Like I loved like, when we asked that question that was sort of like, hey, here's a bunch of women you worked with. Do you have any opinion about this? And she was like, actually, like it was a turning point in my career. And I was like,
yeah, that year changed my life. Yeah. Okay, folks, one of the things we've been doing, we connect this week's guest to next week. So this one is a doozy. Follow me on this. Okay, Michaela's first credit, which we did talk to her about this, but it didn't make the cut, was Charmed. Of course, the great WB sitcom starring Shannon Doherty, who was eventually replaced by Rose McGowan, who was, of course, in Scream 1 as Tatum. Rose McGowan was in Scream 1 with Neve Campbell, who was in Scream 2 with Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was in I Know What You Did Last Summer with
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
And next week's guest.
Wow, who could that be?
Who could that be?
Google, scroll through the cast list. You can send us a DM, a text message,
Please,
email.
God, send us a DM. We may or may not be able to confirm, but let's just be honest. It was a big deal.
Folks, while you're on your phone, do us the great favor of please leaving us a written review. I know we're here. I know we're saying the same thing every week. Hopefully you're still listening. It really makes a big difference. Our audience is expanding. That's been the best thing about COVID. And if you could just help us get into the ear holes of some more folks that they can find us and they can hear these great stories from these great women and not cis men, it would be a total joy. So please leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app. You can give us an emoji. You can request an actor for us to interview. You can say, I love it. You can say, hey, needs some work, but I'm still giving it 5. And then you can slide into our DMs and give us that constructive criticism, and we will reply and say thank you.
Also, please find us on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Damian Bellino and at Rodeman. That's RODEMANNE. Last week I was talking about Kathy Ireland, and Damian's been posting a lot of really good pictures of his dog, actually.
might know her from is produced by who? Us. That's Damian Bellino and Ann Rodeman. We also want to thank our consultants at Grumpy Entertainment, Jason Jude Hill and Daniel Sears. And all that editing you hear is also by the great, wonderful Daniel Sears.
And as always, an extra special thank you to Gang. Their music underscores each and every one of our episodes. So you can stream or download Gang's music on iTunes or wherever you find their music. You can listen to it on any platform. Kathy Ireland is worth $500 million. When I started tweeting about Kathy Ireland 5 or 6 years ago, she was worth $400. Now she's worth upwards of $500 million. Kathy Ireland is very complicated for me. I like her, I respect her, but she's also insanely religious and very vocally anti-abortion. So I spend a lot of time thinking about Kathy Ireland. Did you see that movie that she was in, Necessary Roughness?
You told me based on that movie alone that you wanted me to reach out to her for the podcast. No response back. Still,
well,
no hello
we'd have to have a real heart-to-heart about her politics if she's coming on this show. But $500 million. Maybe she can fund us.